Morning, everyone. You're very well behaved this morning. It's lovely to welcome you to Woodbridge Quay Church this morning, whether this is your first time with us or whether you come here very regularly. If it is your first time here, which you picked a really good morning to come to church. Not that every Sunday isn't a really good time to come to church here in Woodbridge, but this morning we've got a couple of additions to our worship group, and they're going to be taking part. Geraldine and Kerry have been with us for the weekend, and we've had a smashing weekend with them. I just want to say a personal thank you to Geraldine and to Kerry for yesterday. As pastor of the church, I will say thank you in all sorts of ways, I guess, this morning. But yesterday I couldn't help but notice we were singing "Hold On," hold on. And as we were singing like that, 4 or 5 of our folk were actually preparing ground outside. And some hands are going to appear in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And on them they're going to say, just hold on. That's the sense of holding on and being held by God. One of those happy coincidences that happens in the life of church, isn't it? And I want to say thank you, Geraldine, as well, for just showing me how I should deal with Richard when he heckles on a Sunday morning. That was an absolute delight. In the midst of all the things we do this morning, we're going to sing, first of all. And I said to Isaac, could he help pass the instruments out? Because I'm just really aware that the first couple of songs, really excellent. We're going to do something else first. Chris. Oh, yes, we were going to Chris. Sorry, have I not written you down? No, I haven't. Because there's something else that's going on as well.
Yeah, there is. Right, I've got 5 minutes. I'm timing myself. Right. You may remember a few weeks ago that I stood here and said that over the Easter weekend we are going to read the Bible from cover to cover. Yes? Yes. Come on then, remember people. Right, now, we had a meeting 3 weeks ago at which we spent ages agonising over the name. Now, Mike's going to reveal it in a moment. Now, think about it. We are going to read the whole Bible. So everyone said we've got to have the word Bible in the title. Everyone liked the notion of festival because everyone thought, yeah, celebration of the Bible. So we had the words Bible and festival, but we couldn't get any further than that. So I said, right, well, let's think about it at the end of the meeting. So we got to the end of the meeting, couldn't get any further, right? And then we said, let's pray, and we had our prayer session. And as soon as we started, the Holy Spirit intervened, ladies and gentlemen. And the title of Michael, there we go. The whole Bible festival came to mind. So you see the logic there. We're going to read the whole Bible, and it's a festival. It's a whole Bible festival. So there we go. That's what it's called. We're keeping the cover to cover to cover thing because we're reading it cover to cover everything, right? Isn't that awesome? So it's the whole Bible festival cover to cover the known universe. There's only one God in the universe. And we are, as far as we know, the only inhabited planet. That doesn't matter if there are others. But we're covering the whole thing. The whole darn thing, all billions of years of it. Anyway, how am I doing for time? Blimey, only 1.5 minutes. Right. Okay, so tomorrow night we have another meeting, and it's here, right, at 7:30 for anybody who is interested in this. Now, what we've done, we have split. I shall give you a physical demonstration in a moment of how it's all going to work. But the bottom line is, we have got 352, I think it is, 15-minute slots that we need to get filled up with people who are going to read. Right? Now, that's you lot. Right? Every one of you. It would be great to see you, because this is going to be brilliant. So what we're going to do that weekend, we are going to, as I said, read the Bible, the whole thing, every single word, so that we know that in this building we have read every single word that God gave us, apart from the other stuff that we get when we're being spiritual. Like that. But anyway, anything that's printed down. It's going to be a weekend of fellowship. So on the Good Friday and the Saturday, this place is going to be open. The phrase in my mind, Mark's brilliant, he's going to organise all of this. I'm not worried about it at all anymore. That's Mark Pears. It's kind of an all-day coffee morning is the kind of concept. So we want people to come in, hear the Bible being read. It'd be really good if we could find a way of actually getting people to come in if they want to read a bit, but we'll sort that one out yet. So we're going to have an open time for this whole place for people to come and have a look. This is the exciting bit. I thought, when Ezra read the whole of God's Word, when Nehemiah had rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem, one of the things that the people did, they reignited their use of this Festival of Tabernacles, I think they called it, where they kind of celebrated the fact they'd been in the wilderness for 40 years, and they went in the mountains and got branches and stuff and made booths, and they lived in them, and that was all kind of wacky and wonderful. And I thought, well, heck, wouldn't it be great if we could get tents out here? Because after all, it is festival. We're even going to hose down the ground, make it muddy, right? Sort of like a festival. So there was that thing. And then the other thing, in the Bible, fire is an awesome symbol, isn't it? Fire in the bush when God spoke to Moses, fire in the desert at night time when he was leading them through the wilderness, fire when Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the fire and there was God with them. No, actually, it wasn't all of them, was it? There was one missing. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, but fire there's the Holy Spirit came at Pentecost and it looked like tongues of fire. So anyway, I thought it'd be great to have a fire out there. So I thought, better check with the council, better check with my watch. 55 seconds. Right, better check with the council. And they basically said, you own the place, we don't give a monkeys what you do. Right? That's the message translation of what the Bible. So anyway, we're going to do that. Now, the thing is, that if you imagine I'm here, right, this is 8 o'clock on Maundy Thursday, right? 2, 3, 4, we're about midnight now, right? So we're getting into Good Friday, and we're still reading. We're at the really exciting bits about how you're supposed to cut your toenails on the Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. We get to around about here, and we're kind of round about Good Friday morning at 9 o'clock, where we're going to start a parallel reading. Mark, could you just be my parallel reading? And we're going to read, Mark's representing the wisdom books, right? And the poetry, darling. Right, so we're going to walk along together, right? And we're going to get to around, I think I'm over time. Oh, a second to go. We're going to get to about sort of 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock-ish, Sunday evening, and Mark will have finished, okay? So you can sit there. Sunday morning, no, it's a Good Friday evening, beg your pardon, and we'll have finished. So this is Good Friday, we've been reading the wisdom stuff, and Mark sits down, he's no longer wise. And we're going to carry on reading all the really exciting law books, you know, about oiling your bicycle chain and all that kind of stuff. And then we get to the Saturday, and Amanda and Dean are going to have the children. They're going to be reading in parallel. You can stay there, Amanda. Oh, no, you can't. Come and stand here. She's going to read with the children. They're going to read through Luke and Acts. So step with me. A funky step for a moment. There we go. Okay, now you can sit down again. Right, and then that's done at the end of the Saturday. Meanwhile, we've still been reading all through the exciting stuff. You know, all the Pentateuch and the books of the law and all that kind of stuff. And we get to around about here on the Saturday evening, and then we're going to start in parallel reading. Could I borrow you from it, Kerry? Kerry's going to represent the remaining 3 Gospels and the Epistles and Revelation, right? So we're going to come along, and by this time, I've pretty much finished reading the Pentateuch bits, so he's going to carry on by himself for a few steps until that's 8 o'clock in the morning when he'll have finished, right? And what we might actually do is save the last chapter of Revelation for during the service. I don't know, I'll talk to you about that. Thank you very much, Kerry. You can stay. So as you can see, it's quite a big thing, and I've run over time. I'm really sorry about that, but I wasn't given enough time anyway. So I want people to camp down here. Hands up if you're going to camp down here. Yes, brilliant. We're getting some volunteers already. So we're going to have camping here. We're going to have a fire. We need fuel for the fire. Your best furniture only will do, right? It is for God after all. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do. So if you want to know more about that, tomorrow evening here, 7:30. For anyone who wants to have anything to do with it, and even if you can't, just let me know and we'll bring it. But anyway, we're going to have a chat and we'll talk through stuff. Thank you ever so much. And that was, sorry, Ruth, I'm over time.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to introduce now to those of you that haven't been here for our weekend, Geraldine. Geraldine, loose, brackets, Latin. Put it down the right way. Is that all right? Do come and join us. I'm going to hand over to you. I think this handheld.
Hello everybody.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the welcome we've had. We really have had such a blessed day. Thank you. They're so slick here. We are impressed. Blessed time with you, and it's been around singing and voices, and so I just thought one song that we could do with the whole family here would be a song that's based on Colossians 1, which talks about God in every nature is seen in Jesus Christ. And I think it was something that Chris said, and I thought, oh, I liked that God is the God of the cosmos, of the whole universe. And so I just thought, why don't we use a song that talks about our God of the cosmos, but kind of does it in a way that gets us singing in harmony. I think you'd be up for that. So gentlemen, if you could help me by singing this, it's going to sound high, particularly at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, but you translate it into singing at your pitch that's comfortable for you. But the words are this: you're king and you reign over all things. Does anybody know this one? Okay, so it's a duet with Mark. That's great. But so gentlemen, if you could help me sing that, and then I'll introduce the ladies. So does this: you're king and you reign over all things. You're king and you reign over all. You're king and you reign over all things. Well done, guys. Go. You're king and you reign over all. Great. And again, from the top. You're king and you reign over all things. You do sound great. You're king. Yeah. And you reign over all. You're king and you reign over all things. You're king and you reign over all. That was so much fun. I think we're going to have that again just because we liked it. Didn't we? Okay. Do it again, please, guys. 1, 2, go. You're king and you reign over all things. Sounds great. Well done. You're king. Yes, you are. And you reign over all. You're king. Yes, you are. And you reign over all things. Yeah. You're king and you reign over all. Ladies, let's encourage the guys in this room. Thank you so much. Thank you. Just lifting our eyes to see Jesus in that overall thing. So ladies, let me say ladies on this side. Ladies in the middle here, can divide yourself, you can choose where you want to go. But on this side, could you sing the next verse, please, which is Jesus, the glory goes to you. Let me sing that with you. It sounds like this. Jesus, the glory goes to you. Jesus, to you all praise is due. Jesus, we choose to worship you. You're king and you reign over all. Try that, ladies, with me. And Jesus, the glory goes to you. That's it. Jesus, to you all praise is due. Jesus, we choose to worship you. You're king and you reign over all. That last line, don't let it catch you out. So you're king and you reign over all. Does that last line with me go? You're king and you reign over all. Great, let's go from the top. Jesus, the glory goes. Jesus, the glory goes to you. Nice. Jesus, to you all praise is due. Jesus, we choose to worship you. You're king and you reign over. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies here. Okay, I'd like anybody who would call themselves a child, and all the ladies here. Could you help me sing this, please? This is the funky bit, which I reserved because you look funky. So it's over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms, Jesus reigns. It sounds like this. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king and you reign over anyone who's a child or you're on this side, ladies, please encourage them to sing this bit. So here we go again, over. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king and you reign. Thank you, ladies. Do that again. Over the invisible. Here we go. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible. Yeah, keep playing. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king and you reign over. Oh, let's encourage the ladies on this side. Thank you. It's that last line, isn't it? It's trying to get, where on earth do I breathe, Geraldine? Okay, so it's over the invisible, over the visible, you don't, basically. So it's over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king, and you reign over all. For the last line with me, over the invisible, last three lines. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king, and you reign over. Let's go from the top of that, ladies. Over the invisible. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king and you reign over all. Fantastic. Thank you. So now we're going to try and put it all together. Guys, you and me your bit. You're king. It'll all come flooding back, she hoped. So let's try. So, you're king and you reign over all things. And then ladies were doing Jesus, the Holy Ghost, and then I'm bringing the ladies here. Let's just do one part at a time, then we'll stand and we sing it to the glory of God. We have really appreciated how you guys just go for it here, singing out. So let's see how we can make this work. So guys, just refreshing your memory on this, you're king and you're king and you reign over all things. You're king and you reign over all. You're king and you reign over all things. You're king and you reign over all. Okay, just the ladies on this side, Jesus the Lord. Jesus, the glory goes to you. Well remembered. To you all praise is due. Jesus, we choose to worship you. You're king and you reign over all. Well remember, thank you. So ladies and children, over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. Over the invisible, over the visible, over all powers and kingdoms. You're king and you reign over all. Fantastic. So just a reminder, Ken, that when we is it Keith or Ken?
Mike.
Mike. I should go for Mark. Thank you, Mike. When we can sing it all the way through, if you could put the Jesus the glory goes in the middle, please, that would be great, because you will need that, ladies. So, gentlemen, will you stand with me, and I'll bring us in a part of the time. So just the gentlemen kicking off with your king and you reign. Here we go. This is for you, God. Give the praises of your people. Here we go. You're king and you reign over all things. Yeah. You're king and you reign over all. You're king and you reign over all things. You're king and you reign over all. Keep going, guys. You're king. Ladies, stand. Jesus.
Do know your seats. So that's what we did for 10 hours yesterday. So those of you that were here yesterday can say to the others, lightweights. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. The children are going to go to their Sunday school classes in a moment. I've just got two other quick notices I was going to say. I don't know whether that song is on the CD, is it? Or is that on a different CD that's not here?
It's on
a different CD. So there are your newest CD, Geraldine and Carey, is available on that table there. The little brown box is for the £10 to take it away. So that's from some of the spirituals. So maybe say something about that later on. But so that was there. And the second thing that I nearly forgot, there was a significant birthday that we wanted to recognise, and we're going to recognise that as the children are leaving. So it's disguised and so that Janet can shrink into her seat. Because it's tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Okay, so she's hiding in the corner, she's shrinking into her seat. But we're going to recognise it and say happy birthday, but we're not going to sing it. So I think the feeling children have been commissioned with this mission, should they choose to accept it. That's brilliant. So as they're taking that to you, happy birthday. Thank you. And then Sunday school folk are going to exit stage left. Brilliant. It is working.
Check 1, 2.
Yeah, there we go. Brilliant. We have sound and vision. So I was just going to start by asking you to introduce yourselves and maybe just giving us a taste of your journey, where you've come from and how you come to be where you are, what you do, and just kind of how that might fit in with what we've been doing this weekend. I don't know who wants to go first.
How long have you got? We basically both work as lecturers at the London School of Theology, where we train up musicians who basically are also theologians. So they're trying to connect their understanding of God with their musical sound. And so I teach things like creativity, so often using the Psalms. How can we express the depth of emotion, human emotion, that we find in the Psalms through music, and connect that to God's story, to our story. And it's a very deep and rich place, actually. And so we get students from all over the world coming, and it's just a beautiful party, really. But with education is struggle, basically. I hope you understand that. So working through that with the guys and encouraging them that their sound is important, because God breathes his life through each one of us. So that's us as me as lecturer. You carry on.
Thank you. I mean, my background, my parents are West Indian. They met and married in England. So part of my heritage, if you like, is Pentecostal. So certainly till I was 12, everything that's in your head when I say Pentecostal, that was it. And so part of my experience was very exuberant in terms of gathered worship, very exuberant, very sometimes like, what is going on? I can't work that out. But most of the time, just a real place of dynamic expression musically. So there was always music going on, always harmonies and sound. And also what came across quite intensely, even as a child, was a sense of persevering, of hope in hard times. We looked around and we saw families that weren't very well off in that sense, and as a family, I'm one of 6 children, and Dad was the only breadwinner, and so there were times when Mum went to the cupboard and there was literally nothing in the food cupboard, literally. And one story that I remember, when I was about 12, I remember Mum going to the cupboard and there was nothing, not even flour, no potatoes, nothing. and she's trying to prepare lunch for 6 children. And I remember her kind of taking a massive pot. I mean, you have to have a big pot to cook for 8 people, and filling it with water, putting it on the stove, putting heat under that, and boiling it. And I'm thinking as a 12-year-old, what is going on? Because there's nothing in the house. But remember Mum singing, I must tell Jesus all of my troubles. I cannot bear my burdens alone. And she's stirring this pot of water. In my distress, he gladly will help me. He ever loves and cares for his own. I must tell Jesus. Stirring the pot. She finishes singing the song, and my sister, who was out in the backyard playing, comes running in, and she says, Mummy, someone's left some carrier bags outside the back door. And I'm like, well, bring them in then. So she comes running in with 4 carrier bags stuffed full of, there was meat in there was flour, there was bread, some really lovely stuff that we would never have bought, but in the kitchen. And I remember my sister, who was then about 9, running around the kitchen, and she improvised, made up a song, God will provide, God will provide. She's in Canada now, so I can sing it and she won't hit me, but all your needs. And so that was part of my heritage, if you like, in seeing that coming through as a child, perseverance, hanging on in hard times. And I've told that story a lot, and I remember telling it one Christmas with Steph, my sister, and the family, and she said, that's not true, Geraldine, it wasn't the back gate, it came through the front door. And I was like, oh no, I've told that story to so many people, like A Little House on the Prairie, and it's kind of like I've been sinning and telling lies. And then Mum said, oh no, it happened 3 or 4 times. So Steph had remembered one story and I'd remembered another story. But that was just the place of that. So in terms of where we are now, I guess that's kind of part of the song that we feel that we're born to sing, that we've seen around us. It's a song of gospel. And I guess in terms of where this album was born, in terms of the spirituals, in the spirituals you just hear that song of hope, don't you? That song of nobody knows the trouble I've seen, and swing low, sweet chariot, go down, Moses. They're all songs that say, I'm in a hard place now, stirring the equivalent of that empty pot of water, whether it's financially, it's a hard place, or a depression place, or stuff happening in my family or in my body. But what the spirituals are saying is, there's another story playing out. There's another song playing out. And so that's kind of part of our journey to here, I guess.
That's fantastic. What do you think? Well, this is a question that I think, above all the other questions I wrote down, thinking that's the one I want to ask. Why do we sing in church?
Good question.
What is it about singing together in a building? It doesn't have to be a building, but why is it so ingrained in everything that's in the Bible and the Psalms? And what is it about singing?
Yeah, good question.
Because not everybody gets singing. I get that.
Yeah.
So what is it about it? It obviously very ingrained into your background and both of your backgrounds. But what do you think?
Do you want to start with that?
One of the massively important things about singing is actually listening. And we can't sing if we don't listen. We can't even begin to sing if we don't listen. We can't continue singing if we don't listen. And any community is built on relationship, and relationship is built on listening to each other, hearing each other, going deep with each other. So song is like an easy way for us to see that we're heard and that we hear each other, actually, on quite a profound level. And the better that we are at listening, the deeper that we go with each other, the deeper that we go with God, actually, and the more connections we can make with people who don't know Jesus as well. So just encourage and bless you to be great listeners, actually, in this congregation.
That's great, thank you. I mean, there are so many levels in which you can just even begin to explore that question. I think I think when we look kind of sociologically, some of the what we would call primitive or certainly developing communities, the thing that gathers these communities is song. When we think back into our histories, whether it's West Indian history or English folk history, the thing that gathers communities in our history is song, is music being made together. You know, the bards and the minstrels and the churchmanship there, or the kind of Sally Army kind of there's something about music that is inherent in that. In the gathering of a community, and I would go as far to say even in the forming of a community and early development of a community, it's the song that has gathered people together. I think what has happened certainly in Western culture is that, and I guess it's happened with the advent of radio, television, that kind of thing, it's made the song professional. So the song has become something that the professionals do. So whether it was on EPs and LPs, or whether it's on CDs or MP3s, whether it's now on YouTube, it's something that X Factor people do. And we sit back and we watch the song happening. And I think for many people, they have then discounted themselves from being singers because they're not professionals. I think that's another factor that's come into that. And I think that has, that along with the sense of, well, I don't do that, has kind of has almost kind of caused this divide where people say, well, because I'm not professional, I'm not going to sing. But as we were exploring yesterday, God has given us a voice, and a voice that is important, it matters to God. And if we in this community aren't hearing the voices of people in this community, we are the poorer for it. On the flip side of that, and certainly as someone who's been involved in leading music and worship in a local church for about 25 years, I had to realize that when I'm gathering people into sung worship in particular, that I'm a musician, that I am a singer, I love it, I do it, but I'm gathering and have the privilege of gathering people for whom your day job isn't music. And I've had to be reminded that God said through Jesus, he didn't say, go into the world and make musicians. He said, go into the world and make disciples. And so the flip side of that, if you like, is that as we're gathering together and as musicians having the awesome privilege of gathering people into sung worship, I kind of have to remind myself that there will be people here who, for whatever reason, have discounted themselves from singing or feel they can't sing, or actually they just don't get it, not because they're being rebellious, but because they just don't do the music thing. And in the same way that I don't do the accounting thing, you know, so someone asking me to kind of, let's look at these budgets, you know, I'd be like, oh, you know, but so it would take someone of great skill on the accounting thing to gather me into that place. And I guess I say that to say that in terms of us as music leaders, it takes that skill and that experience to gather people who don't do the music thing into a place of saying, let's use this one thing, as Carrie has said, which is an easier way of saying in this gathering, this is the one thing that we can do that represents us being together. There are loads more drop-down screens, but that's...
Yeah, that's really helpful, really helpful. I was going to ask a little bit, going on from that, you write songs for congregations to sing. You don't just take the things that other people have written. Sometimes it's for choirs to sing, and sometimes it's for congregations, just as you did 15 minutes ago with us. I just wondered if you could tell us, how do you approach thinking about a song that is going to be actually for the gathered community? And I'm thinking, I heard a podcast, I mentioned to you, you did a podcast recently where you talked about a particular song that we have sung here, Lord You Hear. And just a bit about the story or the process of how that comes into being, as it were.
I mean, for that particular song, I mean, I would say that for us, we write in different ways. I think we had a bit of a laugh yesterday in terms of, people assume, well, let me say, put it bluntly, I assumed that when people wrote songs or authors, that they kind of waited for this muse to kind of descend on them, that, I feel like writing today, and then you start writing, and that's how it happened. As I started writing, as we started writing, we realized very quickly that actually it doesn't just happen. You don't get the goose pimples and then your arm starts twitching and it's like, I'm going to write a song in Christ alone. It doesn't happen like that. What we found is that it's surely hard work, and it's almost like you sit down at your desk, it's 9 o'clock, and write, okay, God, sing through me. It's almost as mundane as that and pedantic as that. We have a Friday, 1 day a week, which we put aside for our creative day. Now, I wonder if people might look at us and think, well, you guys are so creative. Surely you don't need to diary it in. It will just happen. There must be music in your house all the time. But we found that if we didn't diary it in, it didn't always happen because other things crowd in. You have to make it very, very pragmatic to be prophetic, if I can use that word. And so for us, the place of being really practical, sitting down, 9 o'clock, open Bible, okay, God, how are we going to do this? Sometimes it's as pragmatic as that. And we were chatting, exploring this a little bit yesterday, and I think Christine was talking about, she just looked at flowers, and that was what sparked off her. So sometimes it's just looking at what's around you and that kind of thing that sparks off the imagination. But in this particular song, Lord, You Hear the Cry, it's an interesting one because I had set aside a week for writing, and it was in a half term, 1 February, a few years back, and I had set aside my week for writing, and I kind of, would sing a few little tunes into GarageBand, and then kind of try writing on them, or nothing's happening. Tuesday comes, a few more tunes and then nothing's. Wednesday, Thursday, I'm getting a little bit frustrated, like, okay, God, I know this is the deal, that the muse doesn't just happen, but nothing's happened, and this is really frustrating and stuff. So at the end of Thursday of that week, I just listened back to some of the tunes that I'd was singing and humming along on Monday, and the first one that I had done just landed in my heart. And at the same time as I heard that tune, I just was thinking back along the week that I had had. And in that week, I'd been talking with one of our friends whose husband had just died, and as a church, we've been praying for healing for him, and he was ultimately healed, but not in our presence. But that was such a hard place. And then I was chatting with a friend who was going through depression again, and she'd been struggling with it and saying, why can't I get out of this? It's really hard. It was also the time when it wasn't the Egypt martyrs, it was about 2-3 years before that. There were some martyrs there were some Christians that were martyred for their faith. It was also the time that I'd heard about a friend that was, actually not a friend, a charity that was working in Bristol at the time, working with drug addicts, and thinking about that. It was also the time when I was hearing some of these capitalist countries kind of boasting about money. This is just around the time of bank crashes. So people were kind of talking about, you know, how people had become very poor and wiped out with that, but how those who were in the money had made millions from the crash. So I kind of thought about the proud ones getting away with it. So it was all of those things floating into my mind while that melody was there. And that's when I just began to journal what was in my heart. And the journal is the song, Lord, you hear the cry of the widow weeping. Lord, you hear the cry of the martyrs praying. Lord, you hear the cry of the proud ones laughing. Lord, you hear the cry, had some friends desperately trying to have children. Lord, you hear the cry of the childless hoping. Lord, you hear the cry of those in debt and struggling. Lord, have mercy on us. And the desperate cry from Psalm that says, break the heavens, God. You said the poor are not forgotten, so show yourself, God. So that was, part of that.
Thank you. Now, we planned a song in the middle of the interview. I don't know whether that's the one you want to do or whether you had in your mind anything else, but do you want to, would you sing for us? That would be lovely. And then we'll pick up a little bit of conversation before the end. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down there for this.
Okay.
Lord, you hear the cry of the widow weeping. Lord, you hear the cry of the child ill-treated. Lord, you hear the cry of the depressed one sinking. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Ooh. Lord, you hear the sound of the proud ones laughing. Lord, you hear the sound of the childless hoping. Lord, you hear the sound of those in debt and struggling. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Break the heavens, Lord. You said the poor are not forgotten. Let your justice roar in mighty waves across the earth. Come and whisper peace, O God of generous compassion. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, you hear the sound of the addict craving. Lord, you hear the sound of the greed of nations. Lord, you hear the sound of the martyrs praying. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Break the heavens, Lord. You said the poor are not forgotten. Let your justice roar in mighty waves across this earth. Come and whisper peace, O God of
of your kingdom coming, resurrection day, for creation growing, mercy I receive, pouring out in loving. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on us.
It's a privilege. That is a privilege to listen to your voice and your playing and your words that you bring to us. Thank you so much. I'm so conscious that time I've got a load, but I'm going to have to throw all those questions away. I'm going to just turn to one more before maybe you teach us a final song or read it or whatever. And it was picking up a little bit on what you said about if we're to find our voice, we need to be good listeners. And one of our themes during Lent has been listening. I think picked up the Radio 4 tagline, it's amazing what you can hear when you listen.
Okay.
And so I just wondered if you could help us just think through, how do you listen to God? I mean, I love the story of the songwriting because it's so mundane
Yes.
in some ways.
Yes.
So when we go into Monday tomorrow and through the week and through the weeks after that, how do we become a people? How do I become a disciple that listens to the Lord's voice more? So that's, I think, perhaps a good one to come to.
Well, it's such a difficult question and such a long journey, isn't it, in listening to God? But, we have each other basically to learn how to listen to God. And the people we don't want to listen to are the ones who know how to listen to God. They know it. Because we only hear God truly. Yeah, they know it all, basically. Basically, we need each other to really hear God. And it's in community. So things like prophecy, it's only a safe place when other people are saying it, not just one person. So if somebody's given you a word and it's come just from one special person and nobody else is saying it, then just it's something to put on the back burner. Once a few people start saying the same thing to you, that's the check of being in body. That's why we have to be in the body of Christ, to be safe and to be living as Christians. We need each other to hear God, what he's saying. So we love hearing God in the everyday. I mean, we love the gathering here and God speaks in this place, but we love the fact that God speaks in the everyday through people that are around us, people who are not Christians, wouldn't call themselves Christian. God speak equally powerfully through them, honestly. I said yesterday, God's speaking through donkeys, so he can really take whatever is at hand to speak to us. And it's just an exciting journey to listen on. I'm thinking of listening at the moment on trying to hear on different levels in life. So we can listen, and that's one of the blessings, of course, of being adults, is that we hear. A child will only want to hear on probably one level, or maybe two as they grow and grow. They like simplicity. It's complexity that is at our point of life. So to hear things emotionally, to hear things in the spirit, to hear things for others, to hear things for ourselves, there's a big complexity there. But learning to maybe identify on what level am I listening now? Is it an emotional response? And yes, God does speak through emotions as well, of course. So it's a great question and a really, really hard one.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think, let me say this. So part of my, as I said, my background was the Pentecostal experience. And to my shame, although I know it wasn't just me, but to my shame, I kind of, in that experience where I heard God speak very dramatically, very powerfully, very demonstrably, and it was like you could look and say, oh yeah, I've heard God speak. That was in my ears and resonating in my being. This is how God speaks. And it was all of those things. It for me to define to you as, say, an 18-year-old what God looked like and sounded like when God was speaking would have been, it's hands raised, it's a loud voice, it's the prophetic stuff. It starts with, thus saith the Lord, and it ends with amen. And it's kind of usually coming from people who I respect and revere. This is how God speaks. By the grace of God assisting me. That was patois for Cherry and Winston and I. But by the grace of God assisting me, God just cracked open that definition so that, and it came through blood, sweat and tears, I have to say, in leading a church in worship, when I'm kind of, poured my heart out over these song lists and the congregation are the hands are raised, but just to hold the hymn book, And I'm thinking, oh, right, so how come there's no demonstrative stuff going? And I had to realize pretty darn quickly that God speaks in other ways, that it isn't just in the physical, demonstrative ways, that God speaks to people in very different ways and equally powerfully. And then cracking open my view of how God speaks even more, as Carrie said, in terms of people who don't know Jesus, people who you hear the word of God speaking through. And I guess my encouragement to you, as I encourage myself, is to use this week to see if you can spot God speaking through the ordinary, through the everyday stuff. See if you can spot it. So it's easier to spot it in this room, isn't it? Okay, we can hear it through people on the stage or through words on the screen or through... It's easy. But try spotting kingdom. Try spotting God speaking to you at your desk at work tomorrow. I challenge you. Try spotting God when you're catching up with friends in the week, or when you're at home on your own, or try spotting God when you're meeting up with mothers or other parents. Try spotting God when you're at the gym on the treadmill. Try spotting God when you're kind of working through that homework. Try spotting God in those places, because God, we believe, will be found there. We're reading through Numbers at the moment, and we're cheering you on as you get through do not eat scurrying animals and watch out for other things. But yeah, but we're through Numbers at the moment. It talks about the cloud of God's presence on the people, and we are just so mindful that the cloud was on the people by day, and then it was fire at night. God was always manifest, always present with his people. So it's not so much that God has stopped speaking, it's kind of, God, would you wake me up, wake us up, give us ears to hear you, eyes to spot you at work, so that we can become those kingdom spotters, as it were, those people that are listening out for God in the everyday. And one thing that I have found is that the words that I spot in those secret places that I don't expect becomes bread for me for that day. It becomes stuff that I can eat and stuff that I can then break and then give to others. It becomes something that actually feeds me and helps to feed others. So that would be our challenge to you, if you dare, to try and spot God in your everyday. From this afternoon, try and spot God. Wake up tomorrow morning, God, help me to spot you where I would never expect you today. And I'm not looking for the booming voice, although that might happen. I'm looking for the
the boy's lunch, you know, that boy that brought his lunch and it fed thousands. I'm looking for the water jar. You know, it's just standing in the corner. It's been there for years, but it's the water jar that turned into wine, that blessed a wedding. You know, I'm looking for that tug on my garment, you know, where everybody else is tugging at me and making demands on me, but Jesus says, no, someone has touched me because they want to be healed. That's the kind of spotting we're talking about. God, give us eyes and ears to see and to spot the ordinary, everyday things that you have already put in place where you're speaking, which is not just enough to bless us, but it's enough to bless our community, people around us, and to give the glory back to God.
Thank you. That's so helpful. That's so good. I think we're going to turn to a final song that you're going to finally sing to us or teach us, bring us in and gather us. Before we do, I just want to thank you guys. It's been such a fantastic time, a privilege for us to have you to hear. I've had the words from a Graham Kendrick song going around in my mind. Lord, how you bless us, Lord, blessing upon blessing, Lord, making us a blessing to the world. It's his song from the Beatitudes. It's just, it's that circle, that kind of virtuous circle of God blesses us and we bless others, and you've blessed us. Take our blessing home with you today, and thank you so much, and may Lord richly bless your ministry. So we're going to do something very English. We're going to clap. So, one final song. We're going to squeeze as much out of you as we can, and with this we're going to close our service, and you're going to, you've taught the music group in 10 minutes this morning, so we're going to join in with you, and I'm going to hand over to you again.
So those of you that were with us yesterday will, at the concert last night, will have heard this one as well. And it's a song of hope. It's a marching song, as it were, for us to go back into the world where we spend most of our time during this week. And it's a song about hope. It's our hope is placed in you, God. We put our feet down in who you are, God. And we join with creation that is saying our hope is in you, Lord, because you're famous for saving, God. We're not going to put our hope in any flimsy God. We're going to put our hope in a God who's famous for love, a God who is generous in bringing justice, a God who is a bringer of peace, a God who says, if you trust in me, I will not make you look a fool. You will not be ashamed. You may not understand, but I will not make you look foolish. You will not be ashamed if you put your hope in me. So this song is that kind of, and it has a bit of a song, doo-dee, la-dee, which has probably put most of you off it now. But if you want to sing along with that, that's just our kind of song of hope as well as we come through it. So it's quite straightforward. So why don't you stand, and as you pick it up, help us. Hey, yeah. Here's the first verse. Our hope is in you, Lord. Our hope is in you, Lord. Maker of heaven, maker of earth. Our hope is in you, Lord. That's great. Verse 2. Our hope is in you, Lord. Sounds great. Sing it out. Our hope. Yeah.
else wanted the baton. We do thank you, we do bless you, and we, our prayers go with you as you go on to. It's been fascinating just to watch emails arrive from all over the world and things as you. And so we've just caught a glimpse of where you're from and all that sort of thing. We just thank you greatly. But we don't just thank you, we reflect all of that to God, don't we? And we have a habit here, it's become a tradition, that we say the grace to each other at the end of the time. And we're going to do that. We're going to sing it. I don't know whether Jonathan's got the music for us. He hasn't got it. And I can't do all of that. Oh, he's woken up over the back corner. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of His Holy Spirit be with us all